Hi everyone, so to continue on, 22nd of June 2011, so I'd been to the GP and by this stage I was walking fine again. I wouldn't say I was 100%, but I was 90% there. My speech was okay, my food wasn't dribbling out the corner of my mouth anymore, and the feeling in my face had, almost resolved itself, so I was doing okay. And you kind of think you're getting better and that it's just going to go away and that you're going to go on and everything's going to be okay. So I was waiting for a call from the GP, and so I didn't get a call for the rest of the day, and I thought, okay, that's weird. But then the next day it got to about 5 o'clock. Oh no, I don't know, it must have been about lunchtime, and the phone rings and I picked it up on the mobile. And it wasn't my GP, it was the hospital where I had the brain MRI on Christmas Eve. And they said to me, well, we've got a space for you, we can fit you in a few days. I think it was in about 4 days' time, rather than waiting till, for 2 months until almost 2 months until the 25th of February. And so I said, well, why have you got a space for me? You can't tell me anything, can you? And she said, oh, we've had a cancellation and we've fiddled around with appointments and we can fit you in. So got off the phone from her and went into shock, because I knew I knew deep down what that meant, that I was being called in, that something had come up on the MRI. So for the next few days I was probably in a daze, and unfortunately, due to the stress of that, I relapsed again, and this was what I thought was my second relapse, and down the track I realise now it was probably my third, and I think my first was the tingling in my fingers. So the second one was the one after Dad's funeral, and here I was again, relapsing again. So by the time I got into the hospital to see the professor at this particular hospital, who I hadn't seen before, I was in a bad way again, and not walking well, and dizzy, and everything had come back. It was exactly the same symptoms had come back again. So, or maybe it wasn't another relapse now that I think about it like that. There was nothing new, it was just a reflaming of everything that had already happened the night of Dad's funeral and the weeks after that. So Mum and I went in together, and we got taken in by the professor, and he saw us because my neuro that I'd been seeing in the previous months with my supposed carpal tunnel, he was on leave. So it was handed over to the professor, and I didn't realise he was a professor until he called us. And it was quite funny, because when he called my name, because Mum came with me, I think he thought it was Mum, but it was me. And so we both sat down and I saw his big name on the desk, Professor blah blah blah, and I knew, well, I started to get frightened, because I thought, why am I seeing another professor? I knew something was wrong. So he had a computer screen in front of him, and I went into a daze. It's not every day that you see your brain on a computer screen, your own brain. And he was saying to me that, he was going through all the pictures and everything was fine. He said, yeah, it's all good till here, until we get to here. And then I don't remember it well, because I started to tune out, but there were a lot of lesions there. I probably saw maybe 2 or 3, but the report says there was greater than 10. So he said to me, he explained that the way I'd lost coordination and all the things that were happening to me physically corresponded with the lesions that were in my brain, so it made sense to him. And he said, I can't diagnose you at this stage, but it's looking more and more like it's going to be MS. And he said, now that you are suffering with symptoms again, we need to treat that. He said, what we need to do next is we need to get you into hospital for some testing. And I thought he meant like a day or 2 at the most. So I was going into shock by this point, because it wasn't going to end that day. It was just going to go on and on. We weren't even close to, this was like the start of everything. And the registrar came over and introduced himself, and he said, I'm going to call you in the next 24 hours and we're going to tee up a booking time for you, and you can come in and we'll treat you with cortisone steroids. And he explained that to me, that would help reduce the inflammation, and I'd also go through a number of tests to rule out MS. So he wouldn't commit to telling me it was MS, but I know now he was pretty damn sure. So the rest of that day I went home and just, you've all been through it, so you know what that's like. And it was about 24 hours later, it got to 5 o'clock, and I'm thinking, yes, okay, I don't have to go in. I've gotten away with another day without getting that phone call. But 5 o'clock, they rang. And so they said to me, look, you know, you'll be in for about 4 days, he said. And I was in shock. I yelled down the phone. I'm like, what? And he said, what's wrong with, you know, what's wrong? And I just burst into tears. And I said, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. And I'm not ready, you know, I'm frightened. And so anyway, I was admitted to hospital within 48 hours. And when I got to there with Mum, I packed, you know, what I thought was all I needed for a couple of days. So I took a couple of pairs of pants, not enough stuff by a mile. I had people bringing me in everything, socks and jumpers and that, because I wasn't going home anytime soon. So we got there and saw the booking lady and signed me in, and she said, you know, the bed's booked for 6 days. And I'm like, what? This has gone from a couple of days to 4 days to 6 days. And I was just, it was unbelievable. But I was still quite bad with the relapse, so they had me in a wheelchair and wheeled me up to the neuro ward, which all the patients called it the penthouse suite, because I was lucky enough, even though it was a public system, I was lucky enough to get my own room. And I think that's because I was a bit of a basket case with Dad passing away, and they were quite worried about my mental health at that time. So I did get my own room on the top floor, which was just lovely. And overall the staff were really brilliant to me. And I've talked too long again, so I'm going to stop it here, and I'll explain what happened when I got to hospital and what they did with me over those next 6 days. So for anyone who's in the MS wilderness now, this next video is probably going to be an important one for you, because I think what they did for me is pretty much the standard procedure with diagnosing MS. So stay tuned for, I think it's part 8 now. Okay, thank you. Bye.